This is a book review of the Eagle Annual of Cutaways by Daniel Tatarsky. Now this is from Orion. The book came out in 2008, 176 pages, predominantly in colour all the way through on very nice quality paper. It's there. And what has it got? Lots of cutaways, of course. It'd be very strange if it didn't have cutaways. And this is by Redmill, Fisher, Lawrence Dunn, as well as the, as it says, the King of Cutaways, the L Ashwell Wood. Now there's also a confusing book called the Eagle Book of Cutaways, very similar sort of thing, by L Ashwell Wood as well. That's available. So now I'm just going to quickly go through this book. So what's a cutaway? Well, a cutaway shows through the piece of equipment, so you can actually look through and see the various parts. And they put it at a nice angle so you can see it. So it's not often straight on, so it's, well, unless of course there was symmetry to it, it wouldn't particularly matter. But you can see quite a lot of bits of equipment. Some of it's covered, some of it's not. Must have been a real, quite a difficult thing to draw. But also what you have, you've also got numbering as well. So you've got numbering, so 28, 27, 26. So you can then look at a list at the side and it would have an introduction about the piece of equipment or whatever. And then you'd have a list of all the various parts. And then you have obviously boats, you've got other boats, you've got trains and rockets, and quite often, well, this one has got L Ashwell Wood. Quite a lot of them don't have any names, which is a pity, nor does it date it. I would have loved to have seen dates, because sometimes a lot of these things, of course, 1955 or something, probably 10 years later, probably didn't exist at all. So it would have been nice to have had some sort of context for these things. Now, there's a really good introduction in this. And then straight on to the first, which is a building. At least there's a few buildings. And I must admit, I grew up reading these books with cutaways, and they often show buildings. And I love those buildings. I would always pour around looking, thinking, wow, seeing all different parts. So it's just fascinating to see that landmark. And again, it's got all the numbers all the way down. There was other information about different heights. They always give some other. You've got a lot of great introduction, numbered parts, obviously some detail there, on a single page. So obviously it's 1960s. Not certain, 64, 65, whatever it was. And you've got obviously an introduction there. Preface. So what else in the book? Lots and lots of things. There's cars. So you've got cars. You've also got many other things. Boats, planes, tractors and things. They're all brilliantly in colour until very close to the end. And if you go through this book, and there's lots of things like volcanoes, lots of great volcanoes there and collieries. So it's not just all plains, but it's predominantly that sort of things. You've got various tractor diggers and all those. Now you can see quite often they seem to, and I don't know because of course I haven't got the originals, seem to put them obviously two. So you've got romance of oil and then of course oil refinery. But sometimes it was like volcanoes and sometimes it was something completely separate from volcanoes on the same page. So they did split it. And then near the end, in the 60s, you got that Telstar, you got obviously, but that's just on one page. So that was a one-page one. You got Atlas D, you got their Mercedes-Benz, and so on. So. And then also, sadly, these were in colour. By the end, it actually just went into black and white, and you got the do-it-yourself petrol pump, the sausage car, and those sorts of things. There was quite often futuristic things as well done. So it wasn't just actual buildings or places or ships or whatever that actually existed. These were quite often made up ones, futuristic ones. This is like Dander's ship or something. You'd have a cutaway and those things for those as well. But you got here a Blenheim fighter. Got just so many great details. And you could spend hours looking through this book. It's one of the sort of books that, and I will pick this up many times. And you can just pick it up any page, because it's no requirement for an order. There's no particular order to this. So you can just pick it up and just go through. Now, that's a thing that would have made it even easier. There's unfortunately no index either. So it would be nice at the back. So you sort of look in and say, oh, on page 74, because they've got page numbering. So it would have been nice to have had an index at the back. So you could turn around and say, oh, there's underground shelters for Sweden's Navy. I want to look up that. So you could look at that. That would have been great. But I must admit, I love this one, Ringing in the New Year. There's also lovely bits about Christmas here. You've got Christmas mail as well. Those sort of things, I must admit, always fascinating, those sort of things. And they're very, very high quality pictures. I think they're lovely, reproduced absolutely beautifully. I think they're just absolutely right. I thoroughly enjoyed it. every single page. I just poured through this, just going through and thinking, wow. And you can sort of, even if I'm not particularly interested in modern sky vans particularly, I still can find it fascinating just to see how it's constructed, all the various parts of it. And yeah, wow. And also just some information about things. You think, wow, didn't realise that was happening. And of course, many of these things may still exist, or maybe they don't. I have no idea. But I love this book. This is just a genuine joy all the way through. The Eagle Annual of Cutaways. And I love all those cutaway books. So I would love to see, it'd be nice if they brought out like a 1,000-page one, because apparently there was quite a few. There was about 1,000 odd of these cutaways. Now, real super massive volume of cutaways would be lovely. Of course, all the old Eagle magazines, comics, still exist. So certainly worth picking up a few of those just to see them actually cross on those double page spreads and just pour all over them. But this is a lovely, lovely book if you can't get any copies of the Eagle. I loved it. So Eagle Annual of the Cutaways. Totally, totally recommended.